Thank you so much. And you know what I want to show everybody first, Gary? Can I get you to just stand there just 1 wee second? The first real show of resilience here this evening is hosting a resilience event and them shiny white spiky trainers, kid. Right? Now, I'm not a brand ambassador or anything. I'm not, right? But do you know what real resilient people wear? Slip-on hush puppies. Hushpuppies.co.uk/Jude Morrow, 20% discount. If I wind up in anybody's Instagram stories, just tag @HushPuppiesUK shoes. And do you know what they're going to say? Him again? What does he want? So look, thank you so much, Gary, who has been nothing but a friend to me, has put his arm around me and been like Bambi's mother to me for the last X amount of years. So thank you so much, Gary. Now I do want to clear something up, quite quickly, right? Now please get your tissues at the ready, right? Because we're in for a long, long, hard story. A lot of people have been sort of passing comment that was coming in, God, Jude, you've lost a lot of weight, right? So let me just put it out there, it's 8 stone, right? So, thanks very much. And what I'm going to hit you with, and you know what, actually, I was talking to my good friend in the beautiful waistcoat over there, Chris Suter, who's doing the DJing and the MCing and stuff for tonight. Will I talk about the weight loss? Will I talk about it? Because it's hard hitting, and it's long-winded, right? And I know the interval is coming up. I know it's coming up, and I know you are dying to dive into those chicken goujons, right? But it's time for the hard-hitting story. It's time for the tissues. God, this is harder than I thought. And I'm looking right down the barrel of the camera, as I said. I went to Turkey and got the sleeve. Best $3.5 grand ever spent. That was it. That's the long story. I'm sorry to any of the health and fitness gurus and everything in here. I'm really, really sorry. I cheated. And the first act of resilience, if you can throw money at a problem, do so. So I suppose it's time to give the wee bit of a formal introduction to myself. My name is Jude Morrow, and I am very, very proudly autistic. And look, again, I can go into, that big long-winded story about the sleeve, right? I can go into the big long-winded autism story as well. But I can sum up my story in about 3 sentences, right? Sentence number 1, I grew up as an autistic child in the mainstream school system. Didn't really talk, didn't really mix or interact with people. Had my whole life thinking, oh, I have no social skills, I have no communication skills, blah, blah, blah. Sentence number 2, I had to change my mindset and mind frame as an adult. And sentence number 3, I now stand on stages all around the world, at conferences, corporate trainings and stuff like that, and talk about it. Do you know what's just come into my head? It took me 3 books to tell those 3 sentences. I've written 3 books about it. And I was thinking, God, was that a waste of time? Was it really that simple? And it was, where after I'd started, what I did then was, okay, I became proud of my autistic identity, right? Now, here's the thing, right? People talk about, I'm on the after dinner circuit, right? I talk about this all the time. I meet a lot of really cool people, Everest climbers, people who've been into space and all that, and I'm not really that interested. I like cups of coffee and cleaning my drains. That's what I like. I'm not very interested. But I like to think I'm relatable, because a lot of the stuff I went through in the 90s, people are still going through now. So what it led me to do was to set up Neurodiversity Training International, which is my company. What I do is I am a marketer, sales, copywriter and all that, and if you want your advertising stuff as slick as this talk, that's what I do, right? That's what I do. I help fellow autistic people and ADHD folk and other neurodivergents to thrive in business, because not all of us are fit for the 9-to-5 rat race and all of that. So, yeah, resilience, building a business, great, that's all lovely, look at me, wow, yay, right? But being resilient for a lot of people is a choice, right? I have to be resilient to get through a certain situation, whether it's an illness, whether it's a bereavement, whether it's anything. But if you're autistic, you don't have a choice. You have to be resilient. It's survival. It becomes survival almost more than resilience, because this is really funny, right? I was in the States, and I was doing like a training with postdoctoral educational psychology students. And I explained the first line, the throwaway line, right, I always say is, one of the things I did whenever I was young, which was highlighted by Amy earlier, was lining up my toy cars on the windowsill. And somebody, in the front row, put up their hand, was like, oh, that's called inappropriate play. And it is. It's in Freudian psychology, look it up. And I said, lining up my toy cars is inappropriate play. And I put out a feeler into the room. There was about as many people in that room as there is in this. And I said, okay, so can I see a show of hands of people who drove here today? And then all their wee paws went up in the air. And I said, and did you line all your cars up in the car park outside? Or the parking lot? Sorry, outside, because I was in New York at the time. And they all did. It's so silly, whenever you really look at it. But the fact that people believe that a child can play incorrectly, right? I set a goal, right? We all talk about goals. We all love goals in rooms like this. I said, I'm going to buy a brand new car. And I did, a few years ago. And I went into the showroom, and all the cars were lined up, and I thought, this is disordered, I'm not buying from the showroom. I'm not buying from in here. No way, Alfa Romeo, you've messed it up. I'm not buying. And another funny thing, before getting into this, right, what I had to do, as I was a social worker for 9 years, I know the guy with no social skills was a social worker. Who the hell would ever believe that? You could not make that up. That was me. And it was a case of children say the funniest things. I do talks like this to groups and stuff like that. I do talks to groups, parents groups and all that. And there was a wee girl in the front row, and she put up her hand. And I always like hearing the questions, because do you know what I want to do? I want to be that person I wish I saw when I was 15, and that my mum could see whenever I was younger. To say, you know what, he's alright, he's a good beard game, things might be alright for my son or daughter too, whatever, right? And she said to me, she said, Jude, you know the way you were a social worker? I said, aye. And she said, is that like the dog warden, but only for people? And I thought, that's brilliant. I would never, ever have thought of that. Never, right? So, time went on, and I seemed to get pretty good coverage, right? I thought, you know what, I'm talking about being autistic, yeah, it's, yay, resilience and all that. Resilience is my middle name, it's on my birth certificate. I was told I couldn't have slides, otherwise I would have showed you, but I swear, it does exist. And I thought, okay, I'm being resilient, and everybody will take me on, and everybody will be lovely to me, and things will be great. But do you know what happened? A lot of the time I felt I was standing alone. I was like, what's going on here? Nobody's really kind of taking me seriously. Because if you're autistic, being resilient isn't enough. You need to be empowered to be resilient as well. Because I had achieved a lot. I'd been in Forbes, I'd given a TED talk, I'd built up a very, very successful business. And nobody really wanted to kind of be associated with me for whatever reason. And it made me think, am I a brand of autism that the public and certain bodies don't want you to see? Because that's the thing, whenever you're a child, you can't socialise, you can't communicate, you can't do all these other awful, horrible stereotypes. But then if you're able to stand on a stage and wear lovely hush puppies, hushpuppies.co.uk, Jude Morrow discount code, people say things to me, and they say it like it's a compliment. You know, in NI, whenever people give you a compliment and they sort of turn their head to the side as if you're supposed to thank them, they say things like this to me. They say things like, Jude, but you don't look autistic. They turn their head to the side like that, as if I'm supposed to say, oh, thanks very much. And then people say, but Jude, if you're autistic, how can you speak in rooms full of people? My child can't even tie their own shoes. And I say, well, I wear slip-on hush puppies. Right? But that's the thing, right? I can joke about it anecdotally, but it almost seems as if there's a certain brand, there's a certain image of autism that certain bodies want you all to have, because we can grow to live happy and successful lives, and we can do really cool and innovative things in the world. But yet, whenever autistic people who do have success stories often find it hard to break through. That's what I found. And you know what, I'll admit one thing, right, on the subject of being in a safe room, as Amy said, and another thing I can relate to you on as well. It is very hard standing on the stage looking pretty, isn't it? It is very hard. I feel your pain, sister. I feel your pain. And so, I don't know, I've lost the train of thought where I was kind of talking about the vulnerability, because I'm finding it hard to say, right? Maybe I'm vain, right? Maybe I'm vain. Maybe I've just spent all this time and money and energy with this real burning desire to be noticed, and I can really feel dismayed whenever my accomplishments aren't taken seriously or acknowledged by people that are supposed to support and empower autistic people, right? That's how I often feel. So, do you know what I do, right? I thought, you know what, like any failed businessman with a gift of the gab, I'll go overseas, and I did all right. So, this is the way I am, normally. If I get something in my sights, I don't know if this is a resilience thing or this is an impulsive Jude Morrow thing, but we'll see, I'll let you decide. If I'm ever up the town and I think, that's a nice jumper, I'm going to buy it. They're a nice pair of slacks in that mannequin, I'm going to buy them. They're a nice pair of hush puppies, I'm going to buy them. Right? Where that's what I do, and I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take up skydiving. That's my new thing. You know what, I'm going to focus my energy on something else. So, I did a tandem skydive, and you know what, loved it, thought, this is great. So immediately then, as I do, because I'm quite impulsive, right, I needed to go and get skydiving stuff, right. Whenever you're starting off, you need all these things. You need 4 parachutes, you need 2 front, 2 back, an altimeter, a jumpsuit, boots, goggles, and a helmet. And given the impulsivity, right, I'm not in now. These are all witness to, I'm not in. So I had to get all this stuff delivered to my ma's, because I wasn't in. My ma's heart trouble. So that wasn't a good idea. That was not a good idea doing that. So what I did, I took up skydiving, I went out, and the first time you go out, first couple of times you go out, you jump like in a wee suit with handles on it, and the instructors hold on to you and all that there. You do your practice pulls, and you looking at your altimeter and stuff like that. And I thought, brilliant, right, this works for me. So it came to the point where I had to do the first solo jump. Right? Oh, you know what, people are leaning in now. I like that. I talk about the leaning in all the time. I love that. That's my favourite thing in the world, whenever people lean in. Because I'm not a natural conversationalist. And why I love doing this is because I'm in control of the interaction. Because I get to talk at you. And it's great. And it suits me down to the ground. Because if you come and say hello, sort of in between or afterward and all that, I really am as odd as 2 left hush puppies, sorry feet. And I thought, right, it's time to do the jump. Right, it's time to do, I have to do the solo jump, 15,000 feet, right? So I get everything in the car, everything that I need. I get the 2 parachutes, the back, the front, the altimeter, the jumpsuit, the helmet, the goggles, the boots, everything else, a phone. And I actually stopped halfway down to the drop zone to be sick. Right, and that wasn't because I was jumping from 15,000 feet, it's because I was driving through Limavady. Oh, shots fired, I'm sorry. You know what, Derry, see with the politicians, you'll be asked for it. So I got there, and what do you have to do? I mean, I wasn't great at packing parachutes, I didn't really know, so like the club had to do it for me. So I get down, and it's only me doing this, and then the examiner and whatever. And gave over the parachutes, had to wait about half an hour, and then the guy comes back over, the coach, and he says, oh, there you go. And I says, are they alright? And he said, we'll see. And I was like, right, that's wild reassuring. So this is it, this is the resilience part, right? I'm jumping out on my own, 15,000 feet, gonna have to jump out, do my 2 practice pulls, look at the altimeter, pull open at about 3,500 to 4,500 feet on my own. You said, oh my God, I know, it's scary, right? It's really scary. But it was in me, I had the desire, I was like, I am jumping out this plane. See, as soon as that door opens, right, I'm out of there. I'm like, flying squirrel, Batman, whatever, I'm out. And we get up to the 15,000 feet, I can see it in the altimeter. And the door opens, and I just freeze. I'm like, uh-oh. And I'm just sitting panicking, because whenever you're going up, like say a skydiving plane, like it's not a lovely kind of plane that you see, like in coaches' Instagram ads and stuff like that, but they're sitting on a private jet, they're sitting on the floor, right? And it's about this high up, and there's a static line, so if your chute doesn't open, this thing opens it for you. So I'm sitting on the floor of this plane, and the coaches that's sitting beside me, the door opens, like, it's time to go. So Aaron had said about it earlier, and about wanting to pray, right? About praying. Now, I mean, I don't really do God either. So I thought, right, I'm going to have to really, really dig deep to jump out of this plane myself. There's nobody on the wee handle suit anymore. This is my own jumpsuit, right? And I shuffle up to, the edge of the plane, right? The way you have to do it, there's only one way down, and that's it. It's out the door, right? That's it. And I sat there, and I said, right, I've developed sort of an emergency procedure that I'm going to deploy, right? And I had it all in my head, and just as I closed my eyes, the guy kicked me out of the plane. Kicked me out of the plane, that was it. Now, given that I'm standing in front of you, right, I survived. I lived. I opened the parachute, I tumbled about 5 times on the way down. But you know what? You know what the important, what the punchline to that is, right? Now, this is metaphorically, don't be going around doing it. It doesn't matter how resilient some people are. Some people need a wee kick in the back out the door to get going and get doing it. Because I wanted to jump out of that plane, I was doing it. Right? My heart was set on it. It was like, right, this is what actual stage fright is. You know what I mean? This is like, oh dear. And do you know what I kind of wanted to tie that into? Right? Is the kind of the beneficiaries of time, which is empower. Because I knew I had a message. I knew I had a voice. I knew I had stuff that I wanted to say to people and that I wanted people to hear. So I just wanted to say a huge, huge thank you to Empower for always believing in me, always supporting me all the way through from when I started this journey, and it was probably the best kick between the shoulder blades I've ever received in my life, so thank you very much.